Thanks a million, Yuri, and a very good morning to everybody. Just as well, I was ready and prepared anyway. Hey, thank goodness for that.
I love your tie. Totally love your tie.
Thank you very much. One especially for the occasion.
Fantastic. So I believe you have a poll to start with. So I think let's do the poll first.
Yeah, yeah, okay, sure. I'd schedule that a little bit later, but that's okay. We can go into the poll. I suppose really all I was wanting to sort of say at the very start is, look, you know, we're all in absolutely crazy times, and usually I would start a presentation like this. I have an uncanny urge to, or a feeling that I should be presenting COVID stats, because every media I see at the moment seems to be presenting me with COVID stats at the outset. And I was sort of thinking, well, gosh, you know, maybe I need to present the latest COVID stats for everyone at AviaDev. And actually, you know, that's kind of bizarre. So I actually thought what would be a little bit more interesting is to figure out what everybody else feels when they see these COVID stats. Because for me, I'm fast approaching this stage of when I see the latest stats, I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? I don't know if I even care anymore, which I know sounds possibly slightly irresponsible. But that's where I'm up to, and I feel that a lot of people out there are feeling the same. So let's go to the poll and let's find out what your take is when you see these COVID stats at the beginning of every piece of media at the moment. You know, are you alarmed when you see it? Will we ever get out of this? Are you concerned? It looks like the recovery is a while off yet. Are you ambivalent? You still read the figures, but for the most part, you've lost interest. Perhaps you're one of the ones possibly a little bit like me, which is, you know, who cares? Yeah, and, you know, you don't know what you're supposed to infer from these stats anymore. What are you supposed to do with it? And that, as a result, you've stopped caring. And maybe you're the last option, which is, so wait, does this mean I can travel next month, or does it mean I can't travel next month? That's the main sort of goal. So stick in your votes, and let's see how you all go. I'll vote myself as well. There we go, submit. And we'll come back onto that at the end of the talk and find out where everybody's up to. So naturally, of course, we've seen these types of events before in our industry, actually all too often. We've seen, you know, Gulf Wars, swine flu, SARS, the tsunami, volcano crises, 9/11, global financial crisis. The list is pretty much endless. And of course, every time we've rebounded relatively quickly. We've learned that the effects were short-lived. Such was the resilience, thank goodness, of the travel industry, and the seemingly endless desire for everyone to travel. For the most part, it was a case of hang in there long enough and it'll be okay. And almost without exception, it was okay. Now, IATA, World Travel and Tourism Council, United Nations World Tourism Organization, and other industry organizations regularly compile annual stats which show that pretty much every single year this century, and indeed most of the last century, by the way, that tourism arrivals go up regardless of these external shocks. It's definitely one of the most resilient industries. But the detail beneath this is that people made new and different choices regarding travel after the larger shocks, including 9/11 and the global financial crisis. It became apparent that whilst we may have thought twice before moving house or buying that new car, and whilst we may have spent more in Aldi than our usual supermarkets and made other cost savings, we were not about to forgo our family holiday or other travel. And so some traveled closer to home, others spent less on their travel, and others took fewer trips. But all in all, we still continued to travel. But did we change, but we did change our travel habits, I should say, to suit the financial environment we were in. And I think that that's key. So this long history of continued growth has led us to cases of over-tourism, which is where there are more tourists at certain times of the year than the destination can reasonably cater for without negatively impacting the travel experience or the local community. My thoughts on this were pretty simple when creating Low Season Traveller. For the first time ever, why doesn't the industry actually promote the experiences during the low season months in a positive and proactive way? So I came up with the tagline, travel without the crowds, and set about encouraging people to discover the world's destinations during their low seasons as a way of alleviating over-tourism. And we were going to launch this in March 2020 at ITB Berlin. It turns out that wasn't the most ideal time to launch a new travel organization. So we delayed the launch, and I started to feel a little bit depressed, if I'm being very honest, just how unlucky I could be. But by the time we got to June, it became apparent that this situation the travel industry and indeed the world found itself in was actually not going to rebound as quickly as previous crises. And also that it was going to decimate the peak seasons which many destinations had become accustomed to being reliant upon. Because travel and tourism over the past 40 plus years has continued to grow, we became lax. The 40-year habit of growth conditioned us as an industry to be resilient of short-term shocks. We could be pretty much guaranteed that if we open up our destinations during the peak months, we're going to get more visitors than last year. In short, I like to say we got fat and lazy as a result of prolonged and continuous growth. But in June this year, we realized that our peak seasons could no longer be relied upon for 2020, and who knows, maybe 2021, heaven forbid. And so it's now apparent that we simply have to market our low seasons better than ever. And let's face facts, seasonality has brought its fair share of pains to us all over the years. It's clearly way more favourable to welcome a steady stream of visitors all year round than solely during the peak months. So let me ask you this, when's the best time to experience Rome, for example? Is it in the summer with the crowds, the hassle, the stress, the high prices, but hey, you can wear a t-shirt as you wait in that 3-hour line for the Colosseum? Or is it in January with lower prices, fewer crowds, more chances of local interaction, less hassle, less queues? The Colosseum, St. Peter's Square, Trevi Fountain, they're all still there in January. The only difference is that you need to bring, a jacket. So which of those options provides the best time to experience Rome? I would argue that it's the latter. You see, the absolute beauty of low season travel is that the conditions for this type of travel have never been better. We're all still searching for amazing experiences, which, by the way, maybe our friends haven't experienced. We're all increasingly seeking authentic and real experiences in destinations. We've moved on from the checkbox tourism, where we have a selfie with the Eiffel Tower for Instagram before moving on to the next big must-see attraction. Now it's about experiencing the places we visit and having a deeper and more meaningful relationship with these destinations. There'll always be the crowds who'll blindly follow the rest of the crowds like sheep. And there'll be those who stick 2 fingers up to the status quo and say, if everyone's turning left, I'm going to turn right. If everyone goes up the Eiffel Tower when they go to France, then I want to go down one of those little side streets and find a charming, beautiful church, which is off the beaten track and away from the crowds. I find that increasingly people want to think of themselves as leaders, which is actually quite handy because if ever there was a time for leadership, right now is it. So promoting low season travel is about promoting a form of travel which is more responsible, more authentic, more sustainable, and more accessible than any other form of travel. And by the way, side note, did I include enough of the right buzzwords there for you all? Because they all are all absolutely right for this particular type of travel. But let's be clear, promoting low season tourism is about leadership and marketing. No one has ever come up to me and said, look, Ged, what I'm really missing in my life right now is an organization promoting low season travel. That's literally never happened. I'm just coming up with a form of travel which provides them with a more authentic and real experience, is responsible and sustainable, saves them time, allows them to travel more, and saves them a heap of cash as we enter an economic downturn of biblical proportions. And I'm saying, does this sound like a good way to travel to you? And apparently a sizable proportion of the population do indeed think that this sounds like a pretty good way to go. Now, I do get the value of market research, but I always come back to the fact that most people don't know what they want or need. They need to be told, or more accurately, they need to be led. There's a quote often attributed to Henry Ford, the famous inventor of the automobile, where he said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. No customer research asked for automobiles or iPhones or social media. They just tapped into our needs at exactly the right time, and they led us. So my message today is pretty clear. Now is the right time to promote our destinations during their low season months. If you live in Valencia and you're thinking that summer is the best time to visit Valencia, and I'm looking at you, Miguel, let me tell you this, compared to where I live right now, Valencia in January would be like a slice of heaven. And the same is true of Rome, Riga, Tallinn, Trieste, Belfast, and many more. We travel the world to experience something new. If I have to socially distance and wear a face mask this January at home in Manchester, Or instead, any of the former named places, I'll take the latter every single time, thanks. In fact, I'm dying to get there. The fact is, we don't value what's on our doorstep as much as outsiders value it. We need to view our destination through the eyes of visitors. And by the way, if you need me to come over and help you gain an outsider's perspective on your destination, I'd be only too happy to help, especially if you're from Malta, Cyprus, Tromsø, Iceland, Lithuania, Prague. Hash just saying, by the way. So one of the other things that I'd like to talk about is the fact that we can't rely upon our leaders and governments to get us out of this. I'd like to echo the sentiment of a number of speakers this morning, actually, and reiterate that we absolutely can't rely on governments to get us out of this mess. It's becoming increasingly apparent that our governments can't even collaborate and agree on any best practices to help with COVID. Let's be clear on this. Here in the UK over the past 3 months, there's been a growing lack of confidence of people to travel. And this has been as a result of well-publicized disruption of the travel arrangements of those who have flown during the summer and traveled over the past 3 months. All of that disruption has not been down to hospitalized travelers or traveler deaths, but instead by regulations set and changed by the government. We can't rely on the governments to help get us out of this. We're going to have to take matters in our own hands, I'm afraid. Your budgets are cut, my budgets are cut. We don't necessarily have an abundance of cash right now, but we absolutely can and should return to some form of barter system. Your airport or company has a social media and database following which is very different from mine. I can ensure that your airport and destination are viewed as leading partners with the newest and most responsible form of travel in the world today, and you could help promote our relationship to your database. No money changes hands, but we both benefit and we both get increased value. This is how we need to think now. Collaborate more until we can get out of this hole, and then once we're out, we can compete again and be at each other's throats, I'm sure. But barter and collaboration has to be the new norm for now. Finally, I'd like to end with a note on over-tourism, the forgotten word. People have told me so much recently that over-tourism isn't an issue anymore now that travel and tourism has dropped off so much. And I'm here to tell you today that this is absolutely not the case. And it's an attitude that we need to be really, really cautious of. In the new socially distanced circumstances that we find ourselves in, it takes far fewer tourists or travellers to reach a point of over-tourism. Just as the proposed removal of the middle aisle seats on aircraft would lead to a reduction in capacity, so too does social distancing in your airport, your theatres, your tourist attractions, and indeed your city. If social distancing becomes the new norm, the effective management of tourism and traveller flows at all points from airports, planes, and destinations becomes omnipotent. In the past 10 years, over-tourism has been created by a lack of effective management of tourism flows. The coronavirus situation will force us to be more careful as we plan more effectively than ever before to manage these tourism flows. And of course, tourism capacity in your destination is plentiful if you can successfully market your low season months where you do have that capacity. This is our golden opportunity to reset our industry to be more responsible, sustainable, and redistribute more evenly the economic benefits of travel throughout the year. Data from Skyscanner, TripAdvisor, and others is showing us that whilst the official demand may be low, the desire to travel has never been higher. Higher even than last year, by the way. People are still wanting to travel like never before, and this pent-up demand just needs a release when the time and conditions are right. Recovery is coming. We can reset our industry and finally crack the seasonality issue. It's a golden opportunity, arguably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so please, let's not screw this one up. Thanks a million for your time and attention. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if there's any way we can collaborate or if there's any way I can help you at all. My email is jed@lowseasontraveler.com. And finally, enjoy the rest of your day and your meetings. Stay strong, stay positive, and I look forward to seeing you all on the other side. Thank you.